If you're a Doctor Who fan, particularly, like me, of the classic era, you know well the inexpressible melancholy that comes from dozens of 60s episodes that we will never see again. 30 of those episodes were scored by Dudley Simpson. Mercifully, audio recordings of all 30 exist, but transcribing music from those missing stories presents special challenges. Blind Man's Buff is heard primarily in episode 1 of the story, with a reprise and Coda heard in episode 3. Both of these do not exist as video or film recordings, only as off-air audio that forms the basis of various reconstructions. Because of this issue, I started using open source audio software called Audacity. With this, I could put the audio into the software and then manipulate the sound as necessary in order to hear the music as clearly as possible. One reason this became important, which I'll elaborate on later, was because of Simpson's orchestration. Although extremely similar to the chase, clarinet, guitar, piano, organ, mallet percussion, and percussion, in the Celestial Toymaker, the bass clarinet is replaced by the contrabass clarinet, a super low register clarinet with a timbre perfectly suited to both comic and malevolent music. The piece begins with musical elements I've discussed in previous videos. Back in episode 2 of the project, I referred to a style I called Simpson's Waltz Macabre, sinister music in 3/4 time. That's exactly what Blind Man's Buff is. The waltz time is clearly delineated right from the beginning and underpins the entire piece. In my suite from the chase, from episode 12, I spent time discussing the octatonic scale and how its unique musical colors permeated much of that suite. In Blind Man's Buff, we hear again that scale's harmony in much of the first half. Unusually for a Simpson project piece, there is no clear melody to this music. It really is accompaniment made of strong rhythm and textural effects. The contrabass clarinet's low honk sets the downbeat, and to approximate the timbre, I played the 2 lowest A's as an octave, taking advantage of the piano's own low honk, the lowest sound on the instrument. Above, the octatonic harmony can be understood as 3 triads heard together. The foundation is A major, but above is both C minor and E flat major. This thick harmony uses 7 of the 8 notes of the scale, as it sets not only the sinister tone, but also the pa waltzing rhythm. We get 4 measures of this sound, and the change in harmony in the next 2 measures comes from the same scale. In fact, the exact C major, F sharp major harmony from the chase suite. The contrabass clarinet alternates these 2 roots in its part. In these measures, I had to get a little creative. As often happens when it comes to reducing ensemble music to piano, it was impossible to accurately translate these C F sharp measures completely. The reason being that Simpson, himself on piano, is playing the 2 chords in 2 separate parts. The right hand with the waltzing C major chords, but the left hand's F sharp major or D sharp minor, or perhaps combined, is inserted in the 16th note between. Here is a more accurate performance of that piano part as recorded in the program. This is a big problem when I try to also play the contrabass clarinet's low downbeats. It's physically impossible to play everything and maintain a steady waltz beat. Therefore, throughout these measures and the similar passages later, you'll hear the various one-handed solutions I came up with. There follows a 2-measure return to the initial A major harmony, followed by the C major harmony for another 2 measures. On the last beat of that second measure, a xylophone glissando lands on D, as does the piano left hand, and sends the music on a dizzy spell of piano triads with xylophone and guitar accents. The piano rapidly alternates D major and C major, while underneath the guitar, denying the downbeats in a rhythm of 3/8 lengths, punches foreign chords which add up to 2 dominant 7th chords on B and A sharp or B flat. Together, they have a bitonal or even polytonal bite. The dizzy spell settles down after a cascade of triads descends from B minor on down the white keys back to C major. The C F sharp harmony returns, arranged slightly differently than before. It was in the next 4 measures that using technology to help hear more clearly really paid off. With the remastered but still low quality audio the only source, the contrabass clarinet's odd, disquieting melody is sometimes obscured by the dialogue and action as well. I used the software to loop, slow down, raise the pitch an octave, whatever I needed to get this line right. So far, every single piece I've played for you has benefited from time away from it and returning back to it with fresh ears to rehear the music. And this passage improved greatly even in the last few weeks. It's such an interesting study of the brain, isn't it? It really is true. You see, you hear only what your mind is prepared to understand. It's as if I wasn't ready to get the music correct the first time, but returning to it allowed me to hear it anew and fix what I had initially misheard. This was important because my limited brain wanted this contrabass line to be far less interesting than it actually was. Simpson's goofy melody uses marvelously humorous note choices. This becomes clearer when contrasted with the harmony above. The first taste of a new bichordal harmony made of 2 neighboring major triads, B flat below, but A above. Together, all these wrong notes add up to a whole lot of right. Incidentally, here was another spot where a reduction was necessary to make the piano arrangement work. The contrabass clarinet is accompanied by piano and guitar with a xylophone tap dance above. Without the clarinet, it would sound like this. For the arrangement, I condensed those 2 parts so the xylophone line fits into the chords. The resolution of the contrabass's melody leads into 4 more measures of C F sharp harmony, and another variation of piano accompaniment. Now, the piece starts to move. Continuing in 4-bar phrases, the first new phrase is made of G dominant 7th chord in the right hand, broken and widely spread into 2 parts. Underneath, the contrabass beats out a contrasting, ornamented bass line in a new tritone-related harmony on D flat. In other words, a half step up from the C F sharp chords we've been hearing. Next, another transposition of these chords, this time E flat A, with one final realization of the condensed piano part. A near transposition of the broken up chords with bass line makes up the third and final of these phrases. It would be a literal transposition if the bass part reached F, thus F, C flat. But this time, the low note is G flat. A change in texture is signaled by the piano part, accompanied by percussion that I couldn't include, in a new rhythm, B flat, minor major 9, then a cool hybrid chord of C augmented with an added sharp 9th. Quite jazzy chords, actually. Another phrase begins with a 16th note tremolo of chords between the hands. Left hand with B flat minor, right hand with A major. That's a slightly darker version of the harmony several phrases ago. The piano continues these tremolos twice more, transposing the harmony up a whole step each time. Here's here's where the arrangement gets tough. Along with these tremolos, the xylophone and the clarinet, that's right, the clarinet had 6 measures to put down the contrabass and grab the normal clarinet. Anyway, they play a rapid-fire staccato line on B-flat, basically ignoring the bitonality above. So that all this could happen, the right hand condenses those harmonies in a single octave register, while the left hand dances around the right with its staccato line. The tremolos continue as the xylophone-clarinet line begins to agree more with the harmony. First, a 4-bar phrase of D, dominant 7, with the flat 9, E-flat. Then, an intensification to D augmented with flat 9. That is, the A in the harmony shifts up to B-flat. A 5th measure of this harmony, the right hand switches to pulsing chords, is interrupted by another xylophone glissando. And just to remind us that he is classically trained, Simpson resolves D7 in the expected way by perfect fifth to G minor, albeit a more jazzy added 6th chord. The xylophone hammers out a repeated note line in another tritone-related idea. The harmony underneath is still very rich and still very unsettled. The phrase alternates the G minor 6 with F sharp minor major 9. In the music of Celestial Toymaker Episode 1, we never actually get this far. The music is looped several times, cutting from the 3rd measure of this phrase, the G minor 6, back to the beginning to restart the whole thing. Simpson spoke of directors requiring him to suggest where recordings should be physically spliced to fit scene lengths. This sounds like one of those times. The one and only time the actual coda of this piece is heard in the final program is not until the end of the dancing floor sequence of Episode 3, the conclusion to yet another of the Toymaker's deadly games for Stephen and Dodo. The final 4-bar phrase of the piece, plus the last measure of the previously spliced phrase, is heard here. The xylophone continues its hammering on D, mixing in more intensifying glissandos. Underneath, the harmony rapidly alternates 2 new chords. Note how these unrelated chords move very smoothly between each other. 2 measures of this resolves on D major, and with a flourish, the clarinet and xylophone make a firm end to the waltz. In the program, this ending did not seem as final, so it didn't seem outrageous for my arrangement to end more conclusively on D major. Could this piece have been in D major the whole time? The very first chord is based on A, which is the dominant chord of D. All I'll say is composers always prefer logic to randomness, even if it isn't audible. So it's possible that Simpson thought this way, but not necessary for our enjoyment. Thanks very much for sticking around and watching episode 14, part 2 of the Dudley Simpson is Doctor Who project. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Take care of yourselves. See you next time.